I'm still in complete shock over what happened. The whole situation feels unreal, like I'm going to wake up tomorrow and find out this was all just a nightmare. But no, it's real, and I'm stuck living through it. My wife, the woman I've been with for 13 years, the mother of my 7-year-old daughter, has cheated on me. I don't know if cheating is even the right word. That makes it sound too simple. She pretty much threw away everything we've built for over a decade in one night. A night she's trying to call a mistake or a bad decision. But from how she described it, it felt more like a series of really terrible, deliberate choices. Now, everyone is looking at me as if I'm the monster for not giving her another chance. Let me back up and explain how we got here. My wife, 33EF, and I, 39M, have been a couple for 13 years, married for 10. Our daughter is 7. We met through mutual friends when she was just finishing some training for her beauty-related work. She's a self-employed lash and nail tech. I was working in construction at the time, doing a lot of odd jobs. We both come from families that are relatively close-knit, and we always saw eye to eye on a lot of life goals. Having children, owning a home, maybe traveling a bit once we were financially stable. Over the years, we built a life that I thought was solid. We had ups and downs like any couple, but honestly, I never thought infidelity would be part of our story. About a year ago, my dad passed away. It's been brutal on my mom, who's been alone ever since. My wife has been incredibly supportive of her, practically becoming a surrogate daughter. She spends loads of time with my mom, doing her nails, helping her shop, or just keeping her company. It's been a lifesaver for me because I can't always be there to support my mom. Given my work schedule, I appreciated my wife for that. Part of me still does, even after everything. If you'd asked me last week about the state of our marriage, I'd have told you that we were strong, that I was proud we'd come this far, and that I trusted her with my life. How quickly things change. This all started with the girls' trip to Butlins. For anyone outside the UK, let me explain. Butlins is basically a cheap holiday resort. They do these adult-only weekends where it turns into a massive party scene. People dressing up, dancing, live music, DJs, that kind of vibe. It's not fancy, it's inexpensive and can be a bit grimy, but people go there to let loose. My wife, her sister, and a few of their friends decided to go for a 3-night stay. Since it's only about half an hour from where we live, I wasn't worried. She wasn't going abroad, she's never done anything to make me suspicious, and I'm not the controlling type. I figured she'd just go, have fun, maybe get a bit drunk, come back with some silly stories. We texted a little that night and everything seemed normal. Then, the morning after her first night away, she phoned me out of the blue, crying so hard she could barely talk. Initially, I thought maybe someone had been hurt, or there was a big fight, or something else had gone terribly wrong. The words were spilling out of her mouth in bits and pieces. When I finally got her to calm down and speak coherently, she confessed she had slept with someone else the night before. She even said those words, "I slept with him multiple times." As she kept talking, her story unfolded like a twisted saga I never expected to hear. She told me how she met this guy, 10 years younger than she is, so about 23, which blew my mind. She said she approached him at the bar, they flirted a bit, danced together, and she figured that would be it, just some flirty dancing. But then, according to her, he charmed her into a kiss. And that apparently escalated into her inviting him to walk her back to her hotel room, which led to them having sex multiple times in the span of about 3 hours. She described it in excruciating detail, though I'm not sure why. It was almost like she needed to get every detail off her chest, as if that would absolve her. She told me how they would start. She'd say they needed to stop. He would immediately respect that. And then a few minutes later she'd get carried away again and want him to continue. Supposedly, he never even finished once because they kept pausing. I'm not sure whether that detail was meant to reassure me that it wasn't real sex or something. It just made me feel sick to my stomach. She also told me she lied to him, claiming she was going through a divorce, which seemed to thrill him. He apparently said something like, "Not like I give a fuck either way," which shows the kind of top-tier gentleman he is. And she just went along with it. She said she didn't know what came over her and wanted to see if she still had it. She claims it was a moment of insecurity about getting older, noticing wrinkles, feeling unsexy. Frankly, I don't care what her motivation was. The fact is, she did it, repeatedly. I was so furious I just told her to go fuck herself and hung up. That's when the calls started coming in from her friends and her sister, who were apparently also in shock, saying they had no idea she even disappeared with this guy. They were out doing shots and dancing, and they assumed she'd gone back to the room to sleep. She had texted them that she was tired and called it an early night. Instead, she was hooking up with this 23-year-old. Every time I looked at my phone, it was blowing up with messages from them, asking if I was okay or telling me she was sorry and to please hear her out. I didn't want to speak to any of them. I just wanted to be left alone. I confided in my mom because I didn't know who else to talk to. My mates are mostly connected with both of us. We share a lot of the same social circles. My mom's response was along the lines of, "Think of your family," and that she seemed genuinely remorseful, that she didn't keep it hidden, and that it's not like she had an affair, just a one-night stand. My mom said in some ways, and this might be the best-case scenario if something had to happen. To me, that felt like nails on a chalkboard. Sure, it could have been worse, but it's bad enough as it is. I spent that day feeling like I was going mad. On one side, my wife and her friends were hammering me with calls, trying to fix something that felt entirely unfixable. On the other side, I had my mom telling me maybe I should hear my wife out, that maybe I could find a way to forgive her. But me, I've always been a one-chance sort of person. To me, loyalty and trust are the bedrocks of a marriage. If she can do something like this so brazenly and then confess only because she felt guilty the morning after, well, that just breaks everything we built. Could I even look at her the same way again, let alone forgive her? She ended up coming home that night earlier than planned. She said she left the Butlins trip because she wanted to talk to me face to face. At first, I refused to see her, but then I decided I wanted to hear her story in detail. Maybe it was pure masochism. Maybe I wanted to see if she would slip up on any details, prove she was lying, or that she was just telling me a sanitized version. She sat there in our living room, eyes puffy from crying, while I grilled her. I asked her to lay it all out, how it started, what exactly was said, how many times they had sex, how long it lasted, and why she felt the need to do it. That's when she told me even more specifics. How they were at the bar, and she literally initiated the conversation. She was the one who said something like, "Where did you come from? You're the first handsome man I've seen here." Then they started chatting, took a couple of shots, and presumably some coke as well. Apparently, it's not unusual in that party environment. She said that at some point he noticed her wedding ring, asked about it, and she claimed she was separated. According to her, his response was basically, "I don't give a fuck either way." Then they started making out. She brought him back to her room, and over the next few hours they had sex 4 or 5 times, each lasting anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes, with breaks in between. She'd get up after a few minutes feeling guilty, then cuddle him, drink more, do more drugs, and then start up again. The loop repeated itself until the early hours of the morning. Apparently, there was also some drama involving another girl at Butlins who was into this guy. He pointed her out to my wife, said something like, "That girl over there has a crush on me." The girl saw him chatting with my wife and eventually came over in a rage, knocked over his drink, and left. My wife says that made her feel chosen, like she was winning some twisted competition. She admitted it fed her ego, especially since the other girl was younger. Then they kissed, and one thing led to another. I asked my wife why she thought it was a good idea to cheat. She repeated that she was insecure about aging, that hitting 30 shook her self-esteem, and she wanted to see if she still had it. She said she never truly intended to go all the way, but once she'd already crossed the line, by kissing him and doing oral, she felt like it was too late, so she might as well keep going. Hearing her say that made me nauseous, like, how do you just keep doubling down on something that's obviously so wrong? She also admitted to doing cocaine with her friends, which I'm not entirely shocked by, given the party culture. But that doesn't excuse anything. I asked her if she felt like maybe she'd been drugged, if there was any possibility she'd been taken advantage of, but she insists no, she was fully aware the entire time. It's not like she was so drunk she didn't know what she was doing. She was just riding this wave of ego and physical attraction, apparently. She never tried to hide that part. In her mind, it was a mistake, but one she jumped into willingly. The worst part, for me, was when she explained why she told me so quickly. She said she woke up, saw a selfie I'd sent of me and our daughter eating pizza together, and was overwhelmed with shame. She started sobbing uncontrollably, to the point her sister came in and demanded to know what was going on. Once she confessed to her sister, she panicked even more and decided to call me. So, yes, she didn't keep it hidden, but it's not as if she fessed up out of respect or honesty. She fessed up because she was freaking out, presumably knowing how big of a deal this was. Anyway, I demanded that she leave the house for a few days so I could think. She begged me not to make her go, cried about how she didn't want our daughter to see things like this. I told her our daughter would just assume she was still on holiday, which, to be fair, was essentially true. She went to stay at her mother's place. Her mother called me later, apologizing for her daughter's behavior, but also echoing the sentiment that maybe I could find it in my heart to forgive her. I don't know if her mother really believes that's the best approach or if she's just trying to protect her daughter. My own mum, as I've said, is basically urging forgiveness too, but for somewhat different reasons. My mum loves my wife. She's been a genuine rock for her since my dad passed, keeping her company, doing her nails, watching daytime TV with her. As an older woman dealing with grief and loneliness, my mum adores that attention and sees my wife as an angel. So, part of me understands why she doesn't want to see our marriage end, but it's also frustrating because I feel like nobody is really considering my feelings. Let's be clear, I'm not someone who says, once a cheater, always a cheater, in every single scenario. Maybe some people can move on from infidelity. Maybe some marriages survive it. But for me, personally, I've always believed in giving someone one chance at trust. If that trust is broken, it's basically irreparable. I can't unsee the images in my head, her hooking up with that younger guy multiple times in one night. I can't ignore the fact that she approached him first, lied about being separated, then continued hooking up with him over and over. It wasn't a momentary lapse of judgment. It was an hours-long fiasco. Even the way she described it suggested she actively participated every step of the way. Now, everyone keeps saying she's genuinely remorseful. Maybe she is, but is that enough? She's offered to do marriage counseling, to never go out again, to never drink again. All kinds of extreme promises to prove she's sorry. But can I live with that? Would I feel comfortable sleeping next to her at night, wondering what she's truly thinking? For me, the biggest betrayal is that she even let it get that far when there were so many off-ramps. Kissed him? Off-ramp. Got back to the room? Off-ramp. Stopped mid-sex once? Another off-ramp. She kept going back. That's not a mistake, that's a conscious set of choices. The next problem I've been facing is the friend and family onslaught. Everyone feels the need to weigh in. My wife's friends, who had no clue she'd even left with the guy, keep calling to support her, and also to beg me to hear her out. They keep saying she's never done anything like this before. That might be true, but it only takes one instance of cheating to blow everything apart. I keep telling them I just need space, but they won't leave me alone. Her sister is especially annoyed because she's the one who ended up discovering the whole mess that morning. She's mad at my wife for messing up their trip, and she's also annoyed at me for shutting my wife out now. She says she's trying to stay neutral, but it doesn't feel that way. It feels like a constant pressure to talk it through when I'm still too angry to think straight. It's now been a couple of days since she's been at her mom's. We text occasionally about practical stuff, like making sure our daughter's schedule is kept on track. Our little girl is in year 2 at primary school, so I have to drop her off and pick her up. My wife usually handles a lot of that because she sets her own work hours. Now I have to juggle it. I don't mind, it's my kid and I'm her dad, but it just underscores how much my wife did around the house and with our daughter. It's not that I took her for granted before, it's more that I'm realizing how deeply her presence is woven into our daily life. And that stings. Every so often, I'll catch myself remembering some good memory, like a trip we took to Cornwall when our daughter was younger, or the way my wife tried to bake me a birthday cake once and nearly burn the house down. We'd laugh for ages about it. Now those memories feel tainted, like I can't fully enjoy them without feeling this new bitterness. It's a weird, disorienting feeling. A part of me knows I still care about her. She's not just a random person, she's the mother of my child, my partner, for more than a decade. Yet she did something that slices right through the heart of our marriage. I've had fleeting thoughts about whether I could try marriage counseling. Then I'll remember how she described the night, how she kept hooking up with that guy over and over. The wave of anger and betrayal hits me again. It's like a physical punch in the stomach. My mind replays everything she said, and I realize that forgiveness would mean living with those images forever. Even if I got past the initial shock, would I ever feel the same warmth and closeness I once felt toward her? I wonder if maybe I'm making a decision too soon. But then, part of me is outraged that anyone would suggest I can't be sure about wanting to leave. She blew up our life over a single weekend because she wanted to feel young and attractive. That's not a small issue, and the fact that it happened so easily is terrifying to me. What's to stop her from doing it again if she starts feeling old in another few years? My mom thinks I'm being harsh, which hurts me. I know she's grieving and probably latching onto my wife because she's been such a comfort. But that's not enough to excuse what happened. My mom keeps reminding me, your father would want you to keep the family together. But my dad, rest his soul, also believed in loyalty. He was a straightforward, no-nonsense man. If he were here, I'm not entirely sure he'd be on my wife's side. But I can't argue with my mom because she's in a fragile state, so I just nod and let her talk, even though it makes me feel like I'm betraying my own anger. As for my daughter, she's blissfully unaware at the moment. She still thinks Mummy is on a holiday with her friends. I'm trying to maintain her routine. Breakfast, school drop-off, pickup, dinner, bedtime stories. Meanwhile, inside, I'm a boiling mess of resentment and confusion. I keep looking at her, our little girl, and thinking, if I end this marriage, how will it affect her? That's one of the few things that could ever make me consider not just walking away. I love my kid more than anything. I don't want her life to become chaotic because of her mother's choices. But I also know that if I stay with my wife just for the sake of our daughter, that's probably not healthy for anyone. I've seen marriages where one parent stays despite infidelity, and the resentment seeps into every corner of daily life. That can be more damaging to a child than a well-handled divorce. Is that something I'm willing to risk? The day after she came home and I grilled her, she actually asked if we could talk more, but I told her I needed space. She kept texting me more details, almost as if she thought that by giving me more information, I'd see some path to forgiveness. Like if I knew the exact timeline, or that the guy never finished, or that she was high on coke, or that she felt guilty in between. But all those details just churn my stomach and fuel my anger. She keeps saying, it's not like it was an affair. It was a one-night stand. I want to scream at her that a one-night stand can still destroy a marriage. It's not a lesser betrayal just because it didn't last weeks or months. I remember one specific moment during our confrontation. She mentioned how handsome the guy was, like something out of a superhero movie, and how that made her self-conscious about me seeing him. That was a knife to the gut. I'm not some Adonis, but I always assumed she was attracted to me, enough to not look elsewhere at least. Hearing her talk about his physique, how good-looking he was, made me feel even more inadequate. She tried to backtrack and say she was just describing what happened, not that she preferred him to me, but it's hard not to compare. Knowing she gave herself willingly to some younger, fitter guy purely to test if she still had it is humiliating. Now, here I am, alone in our house, putting our daughter to bed while my wife is at her mom's, probably crying her eyes out. I'm not heartless. I know this is tearing her up too. But she's the one who made this happen. She's the one who blew up our life. Every time I think about it, I reach the same conclusion. I can't see a path back. Maybe that will change in time. But for now, all I feel is betrayal. I've been avoiding social media because I don't want to see any pictures from that Butlins trip. I'm sure her friends might post something, or maybe they've already posted a group shot of them in some club, smiling and having fun. Just the thought of it drives me mad. Imagining her with a big grin on her face hours before she decided to betray me. That's one of the strangest parts of infidelity, knowing that while you were obliviously going about your normal life, your spouse was doing something that would break your heart if you found out. And I did find out. The more I think about it, the more I realize that this isn't just about one night of cheating. It's about the trust that's gone, the trust that says, even if you're away, I know you'd never hurt me like that. It's like a vase that's been shattered. Maybe you can glue the pieces back together, but there will always be cracks. No matter how remorseful she is, no matter how many counseling sessions she attends, no matter how tightly she clings to me in the future, can we get past the fact that she let some random guy into our bed, or rather, her bed that night, for hours of hooking up? Her supporters keep saying, it's not like you caught her in a lie for weeks or months. She came clean right away. I get that, but the reason she came clean was because she was too panicked to do anything else. She saw my selfie with our daughter and broke down. That's not moral high ground. That's being caught in a wave of guilt. She knew she couldn't pretend it never happened because she wouldn't be able to look me in the eye without bursting into tears. I don't know how this story will end. Right now, I'm leaning toward leaving her for good. I asked her to give me at least a few days of peace before trying to contact me again. We both agreed not to tell our daughter anything about the situation yet. If it comes down to a separation or divorce, we'll figure out how to break it to her gently. We might even try to see a mediator. I hate the idea of going through a messy court battle over custody. I hope it doesn't come to that. In the meantime, I'm cycling through anger, sadness, confusion, and this weird numbness. Sometimes I find myself flipping through old photos on my phone, birthdays, holidays, random selfies, and thinking, how did we get here? The day before she left for Butlins, we were having dinner together, laughing about how we'd never even been to something that wild. It just goes to show how life can flip on a dime. One moment, everything seems stable. The next, your spouse is hooking up with a stranger in a cheap hotel room. People keep telling me I'm not wrong for feeling the way I do, that if I want to end this marriage, it's my right. But I also see the toll it's taking on my mom, who genuinely loves my wife like a daughter. She lost my dad a year ago, and now feels like she's losing another family member. But that's not my fault. My wife did this. She knew exactly how destructive cheating can be. I have no idea why she didn't consider the consequences when she decided to kiss that guy. Or maybe she did, and she just chose to do it anyway, which is even worse. I can't help replaying the moment she said, "I just wanted to see if I still had it." That phrase is haunting me. It suggests a level of selfishness I never associated with her. We have a child, we have a home, we have a life. She's not some teenage girl trying to figure out if she's attractive. She's 33, married for a decade, and apparently that wasn't enough. She needed validation from a random younger guy at Butlins. If that's truly how she feels about aging or self-esteem, I don't know how to help her. Because clearly I wasn't enough for her. Or maybe I was, but she just wanted something else. Either way, it's shattering. I'm writing all of this out because I'm still trying to decide if I'm wrong for not even considering giving her another chance. But every time I ask myself that question, I realize I'd be betraying my own sense of self-worth if I let this slide. Could I even be in the same room with her without imagining her moaning in some cheap bed with that younger guy? Without imagining the grin on his face because he managed to hook up with a married woman? It feels impossible. So, no, I don't think I'm wrong. I think I'm doing what I have to do to protect my sanity. If that changes, if I have some grand revelation about forgiveness, so be it. But right now, I'm standing by my decision. I told her to leave, and I've barely spoken to her. I don't care if it feels harsh. She sure as hell wasn't thinking about my feelings when she was hooking up with him at Butlins. For everyone who thinks it was just a one-night stand, maybe that's your perspective. For me, it's enough to end our marriage. It was the ultimate betrayal, even if it lasted only a few hours. Trust is trust, and mine is gone. Sometimes I look at our daughter, who still has no clue, and I feel guilty that she might grow up in a broken family. But maybe that's better than growing up watching her parents pretend to be happy, while resentment festers. Children can sense that stuff. I refuse to raise her in an environment built on secrets, guilt, and forced reconciliation. If anyone out there thinks I'm insane for this, so be it. Maybe down the road I'll reconsider, but as of now, I'm not giving my cheating wife another chance. I can't. She should have thought of the consequences before deciding she still had it in some random holiday resort. Now she's got to live with those consequences, and so do I. The difference is, I'm not the one who broke us. She did. All I can do is figure out how to pick up the pieces of my life and move forward, whether it's alone or with the support of the people who genuinely respect me. I guess only time will tell.